6 AM in the morning and it's time to brew a black IPA. Right, I'm back off to bed. See ya. Good morning, it is time to brew a black IPA. Welcome to Views on Brews. I am Brendan. It's a respectable hour in the morning now. My hot liquor tank, which is also my brew kettle, is just bubbling away a little bit here and there. I'm using this bottled water, it's Carrick Glen. It's got 330 milligrams per litre of bicarbonate in it, which is far too much. Don't need that. So you can boil it to drive some of it away. Gets rid of about 60 to 80 milligrams. And what I've been doing is just literally skimming it off the top. It sticks to this, scrape it off onto my mat. Look, it's not ideal, but I know a lot of brewers out there are using this kind of system. Don't have reverse osmosis, don't have Ashbeck water, which we all know and love from Tesco's, which is super soft, which I'd highly recommend. And if that's the case for you, then this is an option. Like, it's not going to do much, but it's going to do a little bit. And all you have to do is just boil the water and it'll drive all of that bicarbonate out of solution, or some of it. You get rid of some of it, it'll just help your water chemistry a little bit, not much, but that's a top tip. Now, top tip number 2 involves this. Actually, we've probably done a load of tips by now, but that'll all come out in the editing. Everything set up the night before. We are going to boil a kettle of water, fill up the mash tun so that I'm bringing up the temperature of the mash tun, the internal temperature. Don't forget you've got the manifold in there, which is made of copper, so that will bring down the temperature. So by putting a load of hot water in here from the kettle, which is boiled, it'll just raise the temperature of this so that when I put my strike water in for the mash, it's not going to reduce the Celsius temperature of the inside of the mash tun. So I'm going to get a more even mash. And now my cat's playing with my microphone, so it's time to get rid of it. Get out! Okay, so now I have my strike water temperature perfect. I'm going to get the mash in and get it up and running. Okay, so the strike water is up to 75 and a half, nearly 76. So I'm going to get that straight into here. I'm going to lose temperature now, so I don't want to waste any time getting this in. Get it in, pop it back down, have your grains already milled next to you. I don't normally do it like this, but just for the camera, I'm just going to try and get it like this without knocking anything over. Don't be too precious about it. I know people say, you know, don't go too fast because you get dough balls, but also don't go too slow, because if you go too slow, you're going to end up reducing the temperature of the water before you get the mash tun lid on. Now, for everyone that's using their, you know, fancy stainless steel all-in-one systems, looking at me very smugly with your fancy push button stuff, that's cool, you're all set. I kind of like my old little system here. So there's one little dough ball there, let's get rid of that. Every time you get a dough ball in your mash, you're basically losing just one little extra bit of possible sugars that you can get into your beer. So we are doing quite well here. We've already got nearly 2/3 of it in. Got a bit too fast there. Probably going to get a few dough balls now. Dough balls aren't the biggest thing. I know we make a big deal about it, but they're not actually that big of a deal. Just smash them out. Now, I was going to add some calcium sulfate, some sulfate to this recipe to accentuate the hop character. But I also noticed on the back of my water profile, the sulfate and the chloride are very, very high already, which possibly could be detrimental to the beer. It could make the hop characteristic harsh. It could, you know, it could actually lead to sort of like an astringency that I can't really explain any other way. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. First time I've used this brewing water, so a little bit on the fence about what's going to happen next. That's the strike water in. No dough balls. And I've also put the Pt4 and the chocolate malt, I think it was, and the caramel. I put them all into the strike mash because my bicarbonate levels are very high. The dark malts will help to reduce the buffering of those bicarbonates. Basically, it will stop the high bicarbonate water will stop your mash getting down low enough into the 5.2 to 5.6 range for your pH, which I don't want. So if I put the dark malts in into the mash and don't put them in like 15 minutes before the mash is over, it will give the water the best chance of getting to in the range that I want it. Now, I've been stirring this for quite a long time. Normally do this quite quickly. Let's see what I've got. 50, 60, 64, 65, 65.8, 66. Actually, that's a bit high. I don't mind 66. I don't mind any of these numbers. They don't have a huge amount of difference. But I really want the beer to dry out as much as I can, because there's a bit of crystal malt in there, because there's a bit of unfermentable malt in there, and because even though it is a black IPA, it is an IPA. So one of the characteristics of an IPA is to get it dry. So you really want to get that temperature bang on so that you get exactly the right mash temp, and you get that. You end up with a dry beer. Okay, so I've stirred it a little bit longer than I normally would, which is probably something you don't want to do too much of. Look, 65.6, let's go for that. Quite happy with that. I would have preferred it down a little bit lower. I'm going to lose about half a degree Celsius in here over the course of 1 hour. I've used a grain to water ratio of 1:3, so it's 1 kilo of grain and to 3 liters of water. So my strike water was 15 liters and my entire amount of grain was 5 kilos. That's me for an hour. Now I can get set up with doing stuff around the house, because I've got absolutely nothing else to do, because I did it all last night. And that's the cool thing about setting up the night before. Even just, you know, making sure that you've got your Jubilee clip. You know, I don't know if you're using whatever system you're using, spray bottle or sanitizer, a Jubilee clip that you don't want to have to find while you're in the middle of brewing. I took out my yeast last night so that it's acclimatizing to the temperature and environment around it. That will help, maybe. That will maybe help you to get the yeast off to a good start, because when we take yeast out of the fridge and then put it into warm water to dissolve it, which I'll show you later on, that shock of hitting the warm water from straight out the fridge is going to slow down the yeast. You want them to have a period of acclimatization. So that's what that's been doing out the whole night, and in a minute I'm gonna get that set up ready so that it kicks off as fast as it can. Anyway, the last thing I need to do now is to get my water on now. I'm not going to worry about the bicarbonate in the rest of this brewing water here. Should be another one of those. And I am just going to get that on and then go and do some house stuff. Yeah, one last thing that I want to mention is that because I boiled this water to try and get some of that bicarbonate out of it, I then had the new problem, because it was a change in the way I brew. I had the problem of this was absolutely calcified white, really thick and heavy on it, and that must be all the bicarbonate. So I unscrewed the thing, put it under the tap, gave it a scrub with a wire scrub. It's now perfectly clean again. I definitely didn't want to leave it on there and then go sticking my water in and then go sticking the whole of the mash into the beer, because you're going to end up forming some sort of crust and caramelizing and possibly burning your beer. Definitely don't want to do that. Okay, so just setting up the fermentation fridge. I'm going to set it to 17 degrees Celsius. I like to start my ale beers at around 17.5. The reason being, I just like to give them a bit of a chance to acclimatize. And there you can see the heating has kicked in, the cooling in the fridge has stopped. I've got my thermowell inside the fridge now, and this is the current temperature inside the fridge, 6.5 degrees Celsius. That's what I'm going to get it to. So when my beer goes in, the temperature is going to be bang on, or actually it probably will be somewhere in and around. Okay, so it's been a marathon series so far. We're only up to part 3. Coming up in part 4, we are going to be looking at the Vorluth and the Lauter, which is basically the recirculation and the draining of the first runnings. We're going to get the batch sparge going into the mash tun of the second batch of water. We might even get the boil on if I have time. I'm going to show you how to rehydrate the yeast. And yeah, that's going to be up in part 4. Like, share, subscribe, share the content if you want. Get as much people out there to see these videos, and maybe it's helpful for them, and maybe they have some comments, maybe you have some comments in the section below of things that I can do to help improve my water. Reverse osmosis, I get it, I know that one. But anyway, that's part 3 done, and coming up, part 4.